Hey everyone, I'm Andy Rafael from eTechnics.com, and you may remember when Battlefield 5 launched, we actually did a couple of videos on it. One sort of showing you the sheer performance of Battlefield 5, and the other when RTX was enabled through the Microsoft DirectX, DirectX, REX, RTX, lots of different letters. When we actually sort of had that land, we decided to retest everything again with all the RTX cards. But today, well, it sees something a little bit different. There's been more updates. Let's check it out. Okay, so what essentially we want to show you today is now that these updates have come out, kind of, what actually happens from it. Because NVIDIA are claiming, well, a very, very bold claim. Up to 50% performance increases, which, I mean, that's just ludicrous. I mean, 50% is such a huge number, especially when in some of sort of the tests we were doing, we was getting sort of 35 to 40 frames per second. 50% on top of that is going to push us over to that magical, glorious 60 frames per second. So we wanted to really see if it was true, because yes, all these companies out there, they have these bold claims, but where does it actually get you in the grand scheme of things? Is it at a certain resolution? Is it at a certain sort of, setting for the quality? Is it this? Is it that? There's so many different variables to it. So we thought we'd take it upon ourselves to give you guys the true cold hard facts. So what we've actually got is the same setup as what we did last time. We've got our i9-9900K on our janky rig. I say janky because the water cooling loop is not the greatest, but we did that for another video. You might want to check that one out. I'll link it somewhere above my head. And we've also got our Founders Edition RTX 2080. We've got some team group memory in there. And well, as you can see with Battlefield 5, we're pretty much good to go. So we have got plenty of benchmarks that we will show you at the end, but let's go through and sort of show you maybe some real-time results, and you can decide for yourself as to, if things have improved or not. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is obviously make sure that all the settings are still enabled from our last video. So the main thing really is checking that DX12 is enabled, and of course the vital one, DXR, is enabled. We've also, as you can see, made sure that vertical sync is turned off, so there's not going to be any issues there. As we scroll down, checking out the graphics quality, just like last time, for the sake of keeping everything nice and fair, we have the graphics quality set to high, and also the DXR ray trace reflections quality to high as well. So we're just going to go back and then actually go into the game and sort of see, what we're able to get. Okay, so we're starting the game just like last time on exactly the same level. So this is the night raid. We're just parachuting in, and the frame rates, they're a little bit higher. They're not, through the roof or anything. Bearing in mind this is a 2080 and we are operating at 4K. So before, I'm trying to remember, what I actually showed you guys, but I do remember sort of staring at the floor, and I think we was getting about 33 to 34 frames. So as you can see now, we're at sort of 39, 40. So there is, a really sort of slight increase. As we run up, I'm going to try and obviously focus on playing the game as well as sort of, reading out what the FPS counter is, but we will zoom in so you can see that a little bit better as well. So just here, for instance, I think we was getting about 27 frames. And as you can see now, we're getting sort of closer to 33 up to sort of 36. So, I mean, quite a difference really, just from a simple update. I say a simple update, obviously that involves the graphics drivers as well as the what DICE have actually been able to do. So I guess a combination of the two. Now last time I did show you guys sort of looking into the fire and what kind of frame rate we was getting there. And again, last time it was around sort of 32, 33 frames. And you can see now, just sort of looking around, we're getting sort of 38 to 41 frames. So again, there is that slight increase. So literally, like we said in our last feature, there is some noticeable improvements. Like I say, I'm not the best person at playing games, so, it wouldn't surprise me if I do die. But hopefully my other teammates have got my back. Yeah, I'm going to get out of here because I think I'm dying. Retreat! Okay, right, I'm good. So yeah, focusing on the frame rate, you can see that things are maybe sort of 5 to 7 frames a second better. I just want to kill these guys, and then we can focus on sort of some other areas where we're not getting all of these explosions and everything, because I think the rest of my team are actually dead now. So yeah, oh no, they've returned. They've come to save me. So even with the snow and everything, yeah, now we're getting 37 frames, whereas I believe before it was probably closer to sort of 31. So one of the things that obviously I did check out was this reflection down here. This is basically from the light, which is up here, and looking down at the reflection, you can see that we're sort of getting anywhere from sort of, you know, 27 frames up to sort of 30, and that is physically just looking at a reflection. Before it was, you know, a few frames per second less than that. So things are definitely improved. You know, we're at 37 frames now. I'm not saying it's the greatest frame rate ever, but it is a lot better than what we had last time. Let's let this come through, and then we can move on to the next level. So even with this, 37 frames. Before, I think it was about 32. Like I say, it's trying to remember everything that was in the last video compared to this one. But now we're going to move on to the next level and sort of see what that does, because there's actually better improvements on that, because there's not so much kind of going on up close. So let's jump into that. So we've somehow been transported from Norway to Libya, and obviously the time has gone on a little bit. And straight away now we're getting sort of 45, 46, 48 frames per second. We're getting really close to that sort of 50 number, which I'm really happy about. So let's go over here and blow up some tanks, shall we? So 46 frames per second. For anyone who did watch the video before, this is, you know, a very big improvement in the grand scheme of things. And this is simply just from one driver update. You've got to imagine if NVIDIA sort of do more driver updates, or there's, you know, some more developments from DICE, even sort of Microsoft, they might be able to do something in terms of sort of DXR and improving things from there. But straight away, I'm noticing everything feels a little bit more fluid and smooth, and it's a nicer game to play now. Before, it was good, but personally, I would have done it with ray tracing off, just to sort of, you know, give you something a little bit better in terms of sort of playable frame rates, better gameplay, and just an overall better experience of the game. But now we're edging closer. I'm not saying it's perfect. You got to remember, I'm playing at 4K on high settings. For anyone who wants to sort of maybe drop down to 1440p, and then yeah, they might experience something maybe a little bit better. So there you have it. You saw, I mean, there is a slight increase in frames per second. I guess some of it could be down to margin of error, which I'd probably be inclined to give a maximum of 2 frames per second either side of what we had before. So yes, we did see some improvements around sort of 6 to 8 frames per second at this resolution, at this quality. But I'd probably contribute maybe 2 frames of that. It could be down to margin of error. It all depends on little things like the heat in the room, for instance, or other little fixes that may have been sort of along the way. But I'm still pretty happy with that. You got to remember, we're doing everything here in the real-time stuff at 4K at high settings. It's nowhere near what NVIDIA are claiming with their 50%, but I don't really want to judge them too much at the moment, because obviously we have tested on other cards. So we've got the 2070, the 2080 and the 2080 Ti, and we're not just going to be testing at 4K. We did it at 4K, 1440p and 1080p. So let's run them glorious benchmarks. So there you have it. You've seen for yourself, there is actually a performance increase. And some of this is going to come down to NVIDIA, some of it's going to come down to DICE. From what we've actually taken away from this is NVIDIA and DICE have actually teamed up and they've implemented a few tweaks together. So not just on the driver side, but there was quite a big driver update to start with, and then there was an update through Origin as well, which I think it came out about 10 gigabytes. So straight away you're seeing that there's some updates there, and from what I'm actually told, there is going to be some more tweaks coming from DICE in the next coming weeks, mainly for the first level from what I can tell. But I've got my phone with me because I just want to go through the figures just a little bit to sort of, you know, give you some percentages, because yeah, it's all well and good sort of showing you the figures, but let's talk about the actual percentages. So 2070, 2080, 2080 Ti. when we're looking at 1080p, there were performance increases pretty much of about 34%. We went from 41 to 55, we went from 55 to 74, and on a 2080 Ti, we went from 69 to 95. But I think the key takeaway there is actually the 2080 now performs better than what the 2080 Ti did before the updates. That is pretty huge. So yes, even though it was only 34%, I mean only, who doesn't love free performance? Getting now a frame rate that was actually better than what the 2080 Ti was to start with, I don't know, are people out there going to be a little bit upset? You know, went out and bought a 2080 Ti because they thought, I can't play this game unless I hit this kind of magical frame rate number. But now you've got to remember they're getting improved frame rates on the 2080 Ti as well. So up to 95 frames per second at 1080p. To be honest though, if you're running a 2080 Ti or 2080, you're probably not going to be running at 1080p. You're going to be looking at 1440p or 4K. So looking at the 1440p numbers, there were some, well, huge numbers. On a 2070, it went from 30 frames up to 54. That is just a astronomical jump. That's nearly 100%. It was actually 80% improvement. It's just absolutely crazy how just from a simple update from DICE and a simple update from NVIDIA on their drivers, they've got this. So kind of what's to come in the future? Is there going to be more driver updates and more game improvements that's going to see that go up even further? Looking at the 2080, 38 to 59, that's a 55% improvement. The 2080 Ti, 56 up to 71, that's only a 26% improvement, but still, free performance. Who doesn't love it? And then 4K. So we tested at 4K. Yes, the numbers aren't as great, but still let's go through them. So we've got 2070 went from 25 to 31 frames. Still a nice little jump, 24%. The 2080 went from 32 to 39, which is a 21% increase. And the 2080 Ti went from 42 to 45, which is only a 7% increase. But you got to remember, 4K is very, very demanding. We're running this on high. If it was me and I was running a 2080 Ti at 4K on high, personally what I'd do is I wouldn't be too worried about the numbers. All I'd do is just claw back them settings a little bit. You could always turn Raytracing just down a little bit, or ambient occlusion, or some of the other depth of field features that would actually give you that frame rate. We spoke last time about diminishing returns, so you've got to remember that maybe you could do something that will have a setting disabled, but it won't actually make that much of a difference in terms of what you visually see. Let us know in the comments section below actually, what card have you got if you have got one of the RTX cards, and if you have, what kind of way would you go? Would you rather have maybe dropping down a resolution to get, you know, better frame rates and keeping the quality at, you know, a high level? Or would you rather just claw back that quality a little bit? Even if you haven't got an RTX card, let us know, because it's quite a specific issue really across a broad spectrum of sort of, you know, components when it comes to the graphics cards. Would you be sort of, you know, sacrificing one to get better in the other, or would you do it the opposite way? Would it be the resolution? Would it be the quality? Would it be turning ray tracing off? Either way, we told you in the last ray tracing video that we had, I guess, an inkling that good things were going to come when it came to driver updates, game updates, even Windows. They might be able to do something with DirectX and the actual API itself that maybe, you know, improves the way that it interacts with each other. And then obviously we've got, you know, AMD coming out later on at some point, sometime soon, hopefully, with their RTX enabled products as well. Either way, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, you know exactly what to do, and let us know if this is the sort of video you like, where we sort of take a deep dive into, you know, these important issues. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.